I never like telling this story out loud. Whenever someone pushes me to remember, it feels like ripping open a wound that never healed, bringing back the smell, the sound, the texture of that cursed night. The party was supposed to be loud Halloween fun, but it became the line that split my life into before and after. Even now, when I close my eyes, I feel the metallic taste in the air. It was October 31st. Ryan's house sat on a quiet street with wooden porches, fragile fences, and pumpkins glowing on every porch. The smell of bonfires lingered. Neighbors warmed themselves in barrels. Children laughed in costumes. When I arrived, the party was already burning hot, music thundering, bottles piled on the porch, laughter clashing with bass. I pushed the door open and stepped into a haze of smoke and sweat. People wore masks, fake teeth, witches with glowing dresses, even a grotesque clown danced crookedly in a corner. I mixed in, forcing myself to enjoy the chaos. For a while, I laughed, drank too much, even danced, but Ryan, the host, had vanished. They said he was outside talking to someone, but when I stepped into the yard, there was only darkness. Leaves cracked underfoot, the air heavy like a storm hovered overhead. Then it began. At first, I thought the speaker had popped, but a sharp crack rang out and a scream cut short. Lights flickered as panic surged. The front door shook violently, then slammed open against the wall. Men in masks stormed in, 3, maybe 4, all armed. Their masks were smooth, white faces, blank as mannequins. They shouted words drowned by chaos. Bullets pierced the ceiling. It was no prank. I stumbled into a hallway, shoving bodies aside. Someone sobbed near the bathroom. The floor smelled of mold. I dove into a bedroom and slid beneath the bed. My heart pounded so loud it drowned the world, every second an eternity. Boots pounded upstairs, voices shouted names, something heavy dragged across wood. Then came scratching at the door, slow and deliberate, metal on wood, followed by a heavy breath pressed against the crack beneath. I shut my eyes and wished to vanish, but the steps retreated, leaving silence that swallowed me whole. At some point, I heard Ryan's voice, desperate, calling. Another voice answered, low and threatening. They had him. Glass shattered as people jumped from windows. The masked men laughed, enjoying the hunt. I trembled until my teeth rattled. Boots stopped outside my door. For endless seconds, they stood still, then moved on. I thought I was safe until silence broke again. The music had stopped, but something else filled the air, dragging sounds upstairs. Then a thud, like a body dropped carelessly, followed by a whimper. The door creaked open. Boots entered, pacing slow. The mask bent low, peering beneath the bed. Our eyes nearly met, but he didn't pull me out. He stood, walked away, and closed the door. I almost cried from relief, but then a gunshot thundered downstairs. Screams followed, then silence. I crawled to the window. Cold night air hit my face, but outside I heard scratching again, metal dragged against the siding, stopping right below my window. I slid back inside, paralyzed. Downstairs, they began calling names, each name followed by crying, then silence again, terrible silence. I slipped into a closet. Through a crack, I watched shadows move, something heavy being dragged. Then gunfire erupted. A phone had betrayed someone. Bullets riddled the room, screams cut short. The silence after was unbearable. Then one of the masked men whispered, "The owner comes with us. The rest don't matter." Ryan. They were taking Ryan somewhere. I knew my turn was coming. The doorknob rattled. I braced myself, but then sirens in the distance. The masked men froze. Steps thundered as they fled, smashing doors and breaking windows. I stayed in the closet, barely breathing. When it was quiet, I crawled out. The sirens grew closer, red and blue lights flashing. But what I found downstairs froze me in place. Bodies sprawled on the floor, eyes glassy, mouths open. And on the wall, blood letters dripping fresh. One word, continue, written like a command or a warning. I didn't understand, but I knew this wasn't random. It wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The following weeks blurred into paranoia and nightmares. I could not sleep for more than 2 hours without waking to the sensation of being watched. And some nights I swore I heard footsteps in the yard, claws scraping the siding, even a muffled laugh that made me relive the horror. I was falling apart, and everyone saw it. My parents wanted me to see a psychologist, but how could I explain that sometimes I woke up and objects were out of place, as if someone had entered my room while I slept? Once the knife I kept hidden under my pillow ended up perfectly aligned on the dresser beside my phone, placed there deliberately. The fear was constant. More reports appeared in the news. Parties attacked by strangers, sudden disappearances, messages written on walls in blood or paint. In a beach house, they wrote, "Wait." In a roadside cabin, they wrote, "Next." It was like a secret language, instructions only the masked men understood. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. One night, I received another anonymous text. "Your stage isn't over." My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. The number was untraceable, no origin, as if from nowhere. The next day, an envelope lay on my doorstep, my name scrawled on it. Inside was a black and white photo of me sleeping, my mouth open, the sheets twisted. What froze me wasn't my vulnerable image, but the mirror's reflection. Behind me stood a masked figure watching silently. I dropped the photo and collapsed. It was impossible. I would have felt it. But proof was there. They knew where I lived, and worse, they had been inside. The police dismissed it as a prank, a digital fake. They didn't understand. That night, I couldn't turn the lights off. At 3 a.m., sharp came 3 knocks at the front door, heavy and deliberate, reverberating through the house. I couldn't move. When silence fell, it shifted. A light tapping came from the window, fingernails against glass. I kept my eyes shut, sure a mask stared at me from outside. In the morning, I found a word traced in dirt on the window. See. What did they want me to see? Later that day, the phone rang, but only heavy breathing filled the line before it went dead. That night, I dreamed of Ryan again, tied to a chair in a dark room, forced to watch footage of us at the party before the massacre. He cried and shook his head. I woke with tears on my own face, and downstairs the television hissed static, though I hadn't left it on. I descended slowly. The glow lit the living room, and in the static, I saw shapes. On the screen appeared one word in white: continue. I ripped the plug from the wall, but the word lingered a moment before fading, leaving only my reflection in the dark screen. The next day I went to Ryan's old house, now sealed by police. On the side wall in fresh red paint, words screamed, "We are still here." I ran home, but horror followed me. The number on my window had changed. First it was 2, now it was 3, marked again on the glass. Each morning, a new number appeared. 4, 5, 6. It felt like a countdown, each mark a sentence. I woke every day with dread, staring at the glass. On the 8th day, no number waited, only a phrase: "It's today." My legs gave out, fear twisting my stomach. I locked myself inside, every sound a threat. At 3 a.m., the knocks came again, 3 dull strikes. This time I couldn't resist. I gripped the knife, descended, and opened the door. No one stood outside, only a carved pumpkin lit from within. Inside was no candle, but a cassette tape. I carried it inside, shut the door, and fed it to my father's old tape player. Static crackled, then a distorted voice spoke. "The game isn't over. You continue." The tape spun into silence, and then, from the floor above, came footsteps. But I knew I was alone in the house. I always felt Halloween nights carried a different atmosphere, heavier, like the line between real and unknown grew thin. That year, I was home alone, my parents away, my friends at parties, and I thought it would be just movies, popcorn, and quiet. But I was wrong. I was on the couch when I heard the first knock at the door, 3 sharp blows echoing through the house. It was past midnight, and I thought it was kids playing a trick. I peeked through the curtain but saw nothing, only pumpkins glowing and mist crawling along the ground. I closed the curtain and sat down, but minutes later the knocks came again, louder, stronger, as if someone wanted to rip the door apart. I asked who was there, but silence answered. I approached slowly, pressed my ear against the wood, and froze when I heard deep breathing on the other side. I stumbled back, grabbed a kitchen knife, and waited. Silence stretched, minutes dragging. I tried to convince myself it was imagination, but then the sound moved. Knocks pounded on the back door, steady, coded, forceful. I checked the small window, saw only darkness, but again the breathing pressed close. I locked myself in my room, knife in hand, but the knocks shifted once more. They came from my bedroom door. Wood shook under each blow, proof someone was already inside. My body locked. Desperate, I connected my phone to the speakers, played a file of gunshots at full volume. Explosions rattled the house. The knocks stopped, and I heard frantic footsteps rushing out the front. I ran to the living room. The door swung open, cold wind sweeping in, but the street was empty, heavy silence pressing everything down. On the front door, smeared in dark substance, words dripped, "At 3." My clock showed 12:45. I sat on the couch, staring at that warning like a countdown. Minutes dragged, the ticking clock louder than the TV. I called the police, explained what was happening, but the dispatcher sounded bored, said it was Halloween pranks, promised a patrol if possible. I knew they wouldn't come. By 2:15, the knocks returned, not on doors but on walls. 3 blows on one side, then 3 on the opposite, circling me. I ran from room to room, always too late, never finding anyone. At 2:30, the power cut. Darkness swallowed everything, my lantern shaking in my hand. On the window pane appeared a handprint, long fingers pressed against the glass, but outside nothing moved. The clock crept to 2:45, each second an ache in my chest. Then breathing started, first one, then many, scattered across the house. Heavy, patient, waiting. At the door, I heard one right outside, steady and close. At 2:59, they all stopped at once, silence so sudden it rang in my ears. At 3 out, the knocks erupted everywhere, walls, doors, windows, ceiling, deafening, furious, as if the house itself would collapse. I screamed that I was armed, blasted gunshot sounds again, but nothing stopped it. The noise grew closer until suddenly it ended, replaced by the slow turn of my doorknob. I froze, knife gripped so tight my hands hurt, the door creaking open, darkness breathing in from the hall. But then sirens cut the night. Red and blue lights spilled across the street. 2 officers stepping out, approaching my home. I flung the door open and begged for help. They searched every room, every corner, found nothing. No marks on the glass, no writing on the door, no proof of the terror that had filled the house. When I showed the time, they laughed, said I must have dreamed, but I knew I hadn't. I had lived it second by second. They left me behind, sirens fading into the distance, and I stood alone again. When I turned back toward my room, I saw something carved deep into the door. 3 long scratches, vertical, as if claws had marked their claim. I collapsed on the floor, exhausted, tears burning my face, knowing I might not survive the next night. I should have left that house that very night, packed a bag, and gone to a relative or even a cheap hotel. But something held me back. Deep down, I felt no matter where I went, the knocks would find me again. I tried to live normally, go to school, laugh with friends, but every sound shattered me. A door slamming, a drip of water, even wood creaking pulled me back into that night. On the 3rd night, I woke to a sound. Not knocks, not scratches, but whistling, long and drawn, from the yard. I peered out, the street empty under dim lights, but the sound repeated, steady, incomplete. I tried filming, but the phone showed only black. The whistle lasted until dawn. Friends laughed when I told them, said I was paranoid. Maybe even wrote the messages myself. They couldn't understand. The next night was worse. Reading in bed, I heard 3 knocks from under the bed. My knife fell to the floor. I sat frozen, staring at the mattress edge, sure something waited below. At dawn, I checked, found only dust, but the terror remained. I searched online, found forums of others who endured the same. 3 knocks at 3 a.m., words on walls, disappearances. Many said it followed phases: knocks, whistles, scratches, voices, then someone gone. Always ending with the same phrase, "You heard." I recorded everything the next night. Cameras in rooms, an audio recorder. At 3, the knocks began, front door, kitchen, ceiling. Reviewing later, I saw it. A shadow across the wall, tall with long arms and a smooth white mask. The same mask from the party. Police dismissed it as light tricks, but I knew. They were connected. The whistles grew louder, surrounding me, until I screamed for them to stop. Silence followed, but then a whisper at my ear. "You heard." My body froze. I turned slowly. No one there. Next morning, 3 scratches carved into my closet door, and below them words scrawled, "We are inside." I collapsed. The house wasn't safe. It was the trap. On the 5th night, the TV turned on at 3, static filling the room. I descended with the knife, but in the noise I saw faces flashing, strangers staring, some crying, some laughing grotesquely. Then Ryan appeared, tied, eyes wide, mouth taped. I screamed, but the screen went blank except for one word: continue. The TV shut off. I fled to a friend's house thinking I'd escape, but at 3, the knocks came to his door. His parents woke terrified. By morning, words scratched on my car: "You cannot escape." I returned home broken. Each night the cycle repeated. Knocks, whistles, scratches, voices, all like steps in a ritual. I kept a diary, listing times and places. Patterns emerged. I was in the middle of something. The final phase would come soon. Disappearance. On the 10th night, it happened. The TV hissed again, but I stayed in bed. Footsteps creaked on the stairs, slow, heavy. The door opened by itself. Darkness filled the hall. The air turned heavy, freezing. Words appeared on the wall, written by invisible hands. "It's your turn!" I screamed, but invisible force grabbed my limbs, dragged me down. The knife slipped from my hand. Breathing surrounded me, dozens of lungs inhaling, exhaling. Then one voice: "We warned you!" I blacked out. Morning came and I woke on the living room floor. Sunlight seeped through curtains. For a moment I hoped it was a nightmare, but blood ran from 3 claw marks cut into my arm. In the mirror I saw a stranger's face, pale, hollow-eyed. On the glass words were traced: "You heard." It was the end. Now I understood. They didn't just take bodies, they took sanity, drained the soul until nothing remained. Disappearance meant losing yourself. That night I waited on the couch, knife at my side, staring into the dark, expecting the cycle. But nothing came. No knocks, no whistles, no scratches. Silence stretched until morning. For a breath, I believed it was over. Then I opened the front door and found an envelope. Inside was a photograph of me asleep on the couch. Behind me, in the darkness, dozens of white masks stared, silent, watching. I don't know when Halloween night, meant to be innocent fun, became the nightmare that still follows me. Maybe it started when I noticed the way the man held his lantern, maybe earlier, in the strange silence of the streets where laughter, voices, even the rustle of leaves disappeared. I was with my friends, 4 of us, dressed simply for trick-or-treat. We were 13, 14, too old for candy, too young to abandon the ritual. The street glowed with pumpkins, fake webs, dangling figures. For a while, it seemed like any Halloween. Then I saw him. A man in a white mask, blank, no features, standing on the corner, holding an old yellow lantern that cast long shadows on the wet asphalt. At first, I thought he was just a neighbor joining the atmosphere, but he never moved, never spoke, just fixed that empty face in our direction. We tried to ignore it, ringing bells, laughing, pockets filling with candy. But every time I looked back, he was there. At one corner, then another street, always ahead of us, always still, always that lantern brighter than anything else. The night grew heavier. The cold wind carried damp earth. The trees stretched like arms. Our laughter shrank until silence ruled the group. We turned down a side street, hoping to lose him, but he waited again, closer this time, the lantern light flashing across our faces as if memorizing us. Finally, one of us whispered it wasn't normal, and we ran. When we stopped to breathe, he was gone. We laughed nervously, trying to convince ourselves, but the relief died. The next corner, there he was again, standing in the street, lantern low, pointing at his feet. No one could have arrived that fast. A neighbor opened his door then, maybe hearing us. We begged for help, pointed. He frowned, said the man had been haunting the neighborhood nights before, trying to lure kids near the trees. His words froze us. It wasn't our imagination. The neighbor reached for the phone, but the lantern blinked out. When it lit again, the man was gone. That night, none of us slept. At school the next day, the story spread like a fever, each of us telling details slightly different, as if memory itself had warped. By afternoon, I was at my window again, watching shadows stretch, the air metallic. Messages buzzed between us. Let's just walk, just to prove it's nothing. And as always, we decided together. The street was too quiet, each footstep loud, every laugh dying in our throats. At the house of the neighbor from before, curtains swayed though the air was still, no answer when we clapped. The silence felt alive, listening with us. And then the lantern. First the circle of yellow, then the mask inside it, emerging like it was drawn from light itself. It tilted, sweeping the beam across all of us. I felt warmth on my face and behind it, breathing. Someone muttered we should go back. We slipped into a filthy alley, trash cans like obstacles, but when we emerged, he waited again, blocking the street. He seemed taller, or the world had shrunk. A car passed, headlights reflecting on the mask, making me sick with nausea. Then gone, leaving us trapped with him again. We knocked doors. A woman with pale blue eyes and a scar across her brow let us in. She barely asked questions, just called someone, listening silently, then hung up. She peered out the curtain. "He comes back," she said. "Different streets, different people, but he returns. We learned not to call attention. We learned to pretend not to see." Her clock struck twice, though no minute hand moved, just a black disc circling. She added as we left, "If he calls, don't go to the trees. They like the trees." Outside, the air smelled of rust and damp soil. We stuck close, afraid to break apart. At the next corner, lantern first, then the mask. Now closer, details visible. A crack down one side, uneven eye holes, a shadow of a smile where no mouth was. I tried to cry out, but words stuck, came out twisted. The beam slid to our feet and I tingled as if the street wanted to swallow me. Phones buzzed, unknown numbers, the same message. "Do you want candy?" The mask didn't hold a phone, but I knew it was him. We ran, not sprinting, but the desperate run of survival. Voices chased us, even one calling my name, but I ignored it. We ended in a cul-de-sac, houses bent in a half moon, fences marked private property. Too many dark windows, too many blue TV glows, no escape. He appeared at the entrance, lantern sweeping the street, plastic decorations trembling. Then 3 knocks, not on doors, but on the ground itself, deep and steady. My heart beat in their rhythm, skipping painfully. Movement in a window saved us, a man waving, pointing to a side gate. We ran, wood creaking, and spilled into a narrow yard sloping to trees. I hesitated, remembering the woman's warning, but the mask advanced, the lantern's oval swallowing the gate. We followed the man inside his house. The kitchen smelled of old coffee, lights harsh. He barred the door with a chair, then whispered, "He calls children by name, sometimes names never spoken aloud." My stomach nodded. His microwave clock flickered 2:57, numbers jerking unnaturally. He led us to the living room, TV on mute with news scrolling. The ticker listed disappearances, always the same description: old lantern, blank mask. My body understood what my mind resisted. 3 knocks struck from the yard, precise like a metronome. The microwave jumped to 2:58, the TV said 2:59. Then breath fogged the glass, slow, sour with age, 3 times. At 3:09, the TV shifted, static dissolving into an image. Us, in that very room, sitting in the same places but slightly altered, expressions off. On screen, the kitchen door opened, lantern entering, mask behind us. I turned in real life. The door stayed shut, but on screen, the mask loomed a step from my neck. The man yanked the plug. The image lingered, then died. And then the real door rattled, knob twisting 3 times. The man's eyes begged silence. We stared at each other, paralyzed. Time broke. Microwave leapt to 3:01, then a voice called us from the hall. My name first, in my mother's exact tone. Then my friends' names, ending in a whisper like savoring. The man blocked the corridor with a broomstick, ridiculous weapon, but it trembled with his grip. The hall itself seemed to breathe, air swelling and collapsing. The knob stopped. Then everything at once. Kitchen door shuttering, glass fogging from inside, numbers on the clock skipping to 3:13, then back to 3:02. Electricity wasn't in charge anymore.